What I tell people though is this. I say, there's over 150 million YouTube channels. There's only like 4 million podcasts. Where do I want to play? I want to play with the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what we did was most people, when they go into podcasting, they think of it kind of just like a hobby. We thought of it like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, then probably it's gonna be a hobby. But if you treat it like a business, think about the person out there like at the park that's selling ice creams.
It's just the simple idea expanded, and basically that's what it is. Wow, 9 years, and
It's just execution, man. It's execution. That's the thing. It's execution, and it's just every single day doing what you're doing and making sure you put it out.
hello and welcome to my podcast story, the show where I go behind the mic with podcast creators to uncover the real stories behind their shows. I am your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and every week I sit down with podcasters from around the world, explore how they create, what inspires them, challenges they face, and how they are making their mark, whether it's for passion, profit, or both. If you've ever wondered how podcast hosts manage their workflow, what keeps them going, or what it really takes to build a podcast that resonates, you are in the right place. So sit back, get inspired, and let's dive into today's episode. Today, on my podcast story, I'm joined by Adam Torres, a powerhouse in media podcasting and personal branding. As co-founder of Mission Matters and host of the top-ranked global podcast, Adam has interviewed over 6,000 guests and helped countless entrepreneurs and thought leaders tell their stories. In this episode, we'll dive into why sharing your message is no longer optional, how media can elevate your brand, and why podcasting is a game changer for impact and connection. Adam's mission is bold, amplify meaningful voices to inspire generations. Let's figure out how he's doing it. Tell me your name, the name of your podcast, and what your podcast is about.
Absolutely. So my name's Adam Torres, and I'm the co-founder of Mission Matters. I host the Mission Matters series of shows. So I host 8 different shows. They all have different niches, everything from I have a business show, an entertainment show, a tech show, a marketing show, a startup garage show. I have a luxury lifestyle and entertainment show. And I've been doing this going on 9 years, over 6,000 episodes in, and man, we are just getting started. Come on.
Wow, okay. Something I need to understand. You have a top business, Mission Matters, and then they all niched into different 8 different parts.
Correct.
Okay, so how often do you publish episodes for each of them?
Oh, this year I'll do over 1,500 episodes. So I do a lot of recording. So this year I'll do over 1,500 episodes. So more than daily, you'll say we're releasing an episode.
For each of the podcasts?
No, it depends. It depends. We cover a lot of different conferences, so it depends on what type of conference we're covering. But we like to keep all of the content where it should be. So, for example, let's say I'm covering a money conference or something that's on investing. We're going to put that content on our money show. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So what you're doing is you're doing conference for the business, the top business Mission Matters hosts conference. And then you repurpose those conference as podcast episodes?
No, I will cover different conferences. So I'll go on site to different conferences. So for example, we have the Milken conference in Beverly Hills coming up in next week, actually. And so I'll do a bunch of interviews there, and then we'll put them, depending on the interviews, we'll put them all on the correct channel for them. So yeah.
Okay. So you go to let's say, okay, which is your, okay, if I ask you which is your favorite right now, it's kind of like hard because it's like asking you to pick your favorite child. Okay, so I'm just going to pick an example.
Yeah.
Let's say the marketing podcast, right? The Mission Matters marketing. You go to an event, probably like maybe VidCon, for example. That's, VidCon, right?
Yep.
And then you interview
I do.
about 10 different persons there. Let's say about 30 to 45 minutes. I don't know, depending on what's feasible. And then you take that's 10 different episodes.
Yeah, and that's a piece of it. And then I also do virtual, of course. I do virtual interviews just like we're doing right now. And then I do on stage, and then I do, panels. So any kind of interview format you can think about, we're doing.
Wow. Okay. You do virtual interviews. You do event interviews where you go to events, and then, but the sweet thing is that it's easier to get access when you're in events because you're like, sure, let's do it. And then you just set up your camera, and then if it's audio only, it's even easier. You just connect the mic and boom, you guys start asking questions. Wow, that's brilliant. Other than event interviews and virtual interviews, are there some other creative ways you've gotten to secure interviews for the past 9 years?
Yeah. Well, and you also can think about it this way too. So you can apply for media and press passes. So that's another way that you get access to the conferences as well. So that makes it pretty easy. So you can do that as well.
You meet the organizers of the event and ask for, yeah. Wow. Ah, man, that's genius. So you meet the organizers of the event
Yeah.
as a media personality that you want to like cover the event, and then over the course of covering an event, you get to interview some of the guests and attendees, and then the
And then you
speakers
get to
too,
interview
depending on
the
where it's
speakers, the
applicable.
sponsors, yeah, all of that.
Wow.
And that's what we teach too. So that's what I teach. So we have a podcast agency. So we've launched over 200 shows now, going on 250 shows for our clients, and that's what we teach them. We say, hey, apply for a media or press pass, and then you're going to get access to the event as media. Normally, you're going to be VIP, and then you'll get higher level interviews too. So it's a good way to do it.
So when they apply for media pass, usually, because I know sometimes it's different from event to event, do they have to like pay, or is it just something that, okay, the organizers of the event will just verify that you're actually a media personality and then they give you the pass? How does it work?
Well, you can always apply and they can always say no. So I don't even today, even though we have a pretty big platform, we reach over 1 million a month, but we're not Yahoo Finance. Yahoo's still bigger,
Yeah.
right? So I get accepted to most conferences, but I have a couple that I'm not accepted to, and it's fine. And so you just go to another conference. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Like some people say no, and sometimes they'll say no one year, but then the next year your platform gets bigger, then they say yes the next year, right?
Okay. So I'm kind of curious, right? Because this is what I'm thinking. So if they say no to media pass, does that necessarily stop you from actually interviewing the people that you want to interview in the event?
That's really smart. Good question, by the way. Technically speaking, when you're media, I mean, the speakers are all on the website anyway. You could pick up the phone and call them, right? You can call them and do an interview before the event. You could do one after the event. It doesn't matter. The reason why the speaker is doing the engagement in the first place is because they want attention, right? Or else they wouldn't be going on stage.
Yeah.
So if you're calling them, offering to give them attention, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. Okay, so you could actually bypass the event as the middleman and go straight to the people you want to interview. Yeah.
Of course. And I mean, worst thing they can say is no, right? They can say no.
Wow.
But the bigger your platform gets and the more experience you have over time and the better your branding and the better your distribution over time, right? Like the more likely somebody is to say yes.
You've been doing this for 9 years now. Did you start the show like all 8 of them at the same time, or you started adding them as the years went by?
No, actually. So the original brand was called Money Matters. And originally we thought that this was going to be myself and the other co-founder, Shirag Cigar. We thought this was going to be like a finance platform. And that's the only type of content that we would cover. So it was called Money Matters. When we transitioned to the Mission Matters brand, that's when we realized that we had to create different segments of the show and create different shows because we realized that really only like 20% of the content was actually about money. So to put it all under a money matters or a money theme wasn't going to make sense because we wanted to interview and create other types of content. So when we made that transition and that shift, that's when we created the 8 different shows because we were like, and those were the niches that we picked that we thought made the most sense.
About what time was this?
4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5, something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Time flies. I think COVID, I lost a couple years in COVID. I feel like I forgot my timeline messed up. Might be 6 years now. I don't know.
Okay. You active on YouTube and both audio and video, right? Or just audio?
Yeah. Our YouTube isn't huge. I mean, we put the videos up there because, we want to be able to be found, but our biggest audience is definitely going to be from the audio side. But we're on YouTube just because we have the video and the capability to do so, but we're not really big on YouTube. And our content, because we put out so much content, it's probably never going to do good with the YouTube algorithm because we're releasing way too many videos for what a YouTube channel is supposed to have.
So for all 8 brands, you have just one YouTube channel or one for each of the brands?
One for each.
Okay.
But the most active is definitely the business channel. That's where the business channel is the most active for sure.
You said the YouTube is not huge. YouTube is not big. Can you give us the numbers and allow us to be the judge of that?
There's only like 5,000 subscribers, something like that. So it's not big.
That's a lot.
I mean, yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, I mean, but comparison to the platform, I mean, like that's not the huge, you know what I mean? Like
No,
that's
no,
we're
like
not like that's not a million, you know?
a lot of podcasters I've had on this show, a lot of them, some of them are like in 96 subscribers, some of them are even like on 100 subscribers. You're like 5,000, and I'm guessing you're probably monetized on YouTube too.
Yeah.
So I mean, a couple of bucks if it's
I mean, I'm just thinking about the big space of YouTube. That's all.
yeah. I guess it's huge, it's big. Probably maybe that's not a focus for now, but probably when maybe in the future you decide to focus on it, then you're already having content. It's just a question of packaging and kind of like modifying to just fit the algorithm. It's not the content is already there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we're gonna launch and probably attempt to do that in the next year or so. It's on the plan. Like, and what we'll do is we'll actually launch a brand new YouTube channel and start from scratch, because our current YouTube channel it has too many videos. Like, and we release too much, and we're a media outlet, so we still want to make sure that we're releasing all of the interviews we do. But in order to play the YouTube game, you have to create content the way YouTube wants it to be created.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's a little bit
so
different.
many little nitty gritty regarding the YouTube. I mean, the thing about YouTube is it's different from the podcasting platforms, and you have to approach it that way. But if you're like, I'm just going to deal with it the way I do my Apple Podcast, my Spotify, then there'll be a huge problem.
Yeah, especially because of the audience on YouTube is different.
Yeah,
the audience on YouTube is very different.
Yeah, the thing, the difference between YouTube and podcast is that if someone is subscribed to your podcast and they like your podcast, every episode that comes out, they get to see it, and they get to, like, most of the time they get to listen to it over and over and over again. Unlike YouTube, there's an algorithm that affects it. Like, it doesn't get recommended to a lot of persons, so many other little things. And you might have 5,000
Like,
subscribers.
you gotta hit the bell, then you have to do this. You have to hit the bell, and then you hit the bell, but maybe you didn't watch one, so now it's not gonna show you the next one, and now it's gonna pause it, and then you're like, it's a pain.
Yeah, but those that have mastered it, they're like getting a ton of views, a ton of, like, YouTube is huge. Like, it's worth it. Yeah. So that's what I say. It's worth it. Yeah.
What I tell people though is this. I say, there's over 150 million YouTube channels. There's only like 4 million podcasts. Where do I want to play? I want to play with the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I focus.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's where because one day there's going to be 100 million podcasts out there. So what's going to happen is some people that started when there was only 4 million, even right now today, are going to make real large sums of money over the long haul, especially as more audience comes to the podcasting platform.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
It's only going to get
The
bigger.
funny thing people say is that they say 150 million, 4 million. You know that out of that 4 million, probably like maybe a very low percentage are actually active on the platform.
What is that percentage? I've heard that too. It's like 400,000.
Yeah, but I know it's way, 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 way low. But I can't really say the exact number because I don't really have it right now. So I don't end up saying something that's wrong. Well, it's way low.
It's a little bit, right? Isn't it like 1 million or less? It's like less than 1 million.
But very low. Like, when you see it, you realize that podcasting is actually really, really hard. A lot of persons quit. And so that itself, it's like an opportunity for someone who's willing to stick it through. Yeah. I want us to step way back, like 9-10 years back. How did you and your co-founder get the idea of starting this brand, this media company?
So I was an advisor, and I was managing money, and during that time I wrote a book. So the book was called Money Matters. When I released that book, I just wanted to have a company like to put the IP in, and that was going to be like this little small marketing company on the side. It really wasn't a plan to create some big old company or anything like that. That wasn't even the plan. I had another business that I was running. Then the other co-founder, Shirag, we got together and we did our first book together. It was an anthology series. Have you ever heard of that book, Chicken Soup for the Soul?
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
So what we created was something similar, but think of it like a Chicken Soup for the Soul, but it was for business people.
Yeah.
And so it was an anthology series. And so what we did was we bring together business owners and leaders from different walks of life, and we put them together in a book, and everybody writes a chapter.
Well, before you continue the story, there's a part you skipped. How did you and your co-founder actually meet?
We met on LinkedIn.
Details.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, I swiped right on LinkedIn.
I need the details. How did it happen? Give me the juicy details.
Just met on LinkedIn.
Okay. You messaged him
Yeah,
or he
we met on
messaged you?
LinkedIn randomly, then we went and had coffee, and then, like, we got to know each other. We knew that we were both in LA, we knew some similar people, and, we just started talking from there, and then eventually I went to him about this book idea, and he was like, "Man, not only do I wanna be in the book, but we should make a business out of this," and that's where it started.
Okay. So continue the rest of the story. You published.
So then we put together our first book, and actually we just released the 11th edition maybe 2 weeks ago now, and we've now published over 400 people in that series,
Wow.
that Mission Matters series. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think time flies, right?
Yeah.
So you fast forward a bit, and looking at the first podcast, Shirag told me, he says, "Hey Adam, we got to start a podcast." And I'm like, I'm starting no podcast. I didn't listen to them. I didn't even know what it was. And I don't even remember how or why I was the one that was chosen, but I guess I drew the short straw, and I was the one that had to do it. And he was the first person I interviewed, and I just started doing interviews. If we could even call them that. I was just recording conversations and putting it up. That was it. My first 300 plus interviews, I didn't even have a microphone. It was just on my phone. We didn't even edit them. We just put them up.
Can you remember the
And we
exact
grew an
model of
audience.
phone you're using there?
Maybe iPhone 6.
Okay.
It's 9 years ago. Does that sound right to you? It might be a 6
Yeah, it
or
could
an
be a
8,
6. Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
in there.
9 years ago. Yeah.
It could be a
Yeah.
6. I know it wasn't a 4 because the 4 was the smaller one. But I feel like it was anywhere between a 6 to an 8, I would argue.
Yeah.
And so, but I can tell you this, there weren't any AirPods. Some of the audience right now, what? No AirPods?
What was life
There
like?
weren't any AirPods.
Like
I
in
don't think
those.
they were out back then. It was the string. It was a little like,
Yeah.
old school. All the young, if you're too young for that right now and you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm gonna be a hater. Stop being a hater over there.
Yeah, back in the good old days.
Exactly. So yeah, that was the deal. Then we started doing episodes, and more people we just started recording, releasing, and then the demand kept growing, and then the demand to be on the show kept growing, and so we kept on just trying to, I didn't like telling people no. I like bringing people on the show. I like interviewing. I like putting out the content, and so you just keep going, and that's how we built it.
Wow. Okay, you said the top round is Mission Matters, but I feel like I need to ask you just to confirm that what are the individual names of all the podcasts? Is the marketing one Mission Matters Marketing?
They're all under the Mission Matters brand, and then they all have their own niche. So it's, for example, Mission Matters Business. So if somebody's listening to this and that's our biggest
Is that the
show,
name?
you type in Mission Matters Business. Mission Matters Business.
Mission Matters Marketing, Mission Matters Startup,
Mission Matters Money. The reason why we did that too, if you go to our website, so missionmatters.com, for categorization, it just makes it super simple. It's very simple. So you know exactly what it is, the quality, the product you're getting every time, and you also know the niche.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently, I guess since it's a media brand, I would make the question general. What's the team like?
What do you mean?
Do you have a team
What's the
that
team? So
make that record?
Oh yeah,
produce?
so a little over. Well, there's a little over 30 of us here. Yeah,
30.
so between the editing, everything's done in house. Yeah, everything's done in house.
Okay, but
so it's like any other media company.
Okay, so okay, I'll ask the question anyway. Do you what are the softwares or solutions you guys use for producing the podcast? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah. I'll tell you that we use, I would say, all of the big ones. So we're on Riverside right now. I know we use
Good to
Riverside,
see you, brother.
StreamYard. We use all the different big ones, and we're always testing too. So if there's something else that some other player that's coming out here that's big and whatever, because you have to remember on the back end, we also produce shows for other people.
Yeah.
So businesses and companies come to us. So we have to stay on point, and we have to stay ahead of the competition, right? We don't want other people producing better shows than us.
Yeah.
We'll lose our client, man. So whatever makes sense, we probably use.
Okay, you mentioned that you use Riverside, and I'm guessing that you're on the Riverside business plan.
Whatever's enterprise.
Okay.
Like we're on enterprise because we have a lot of shows, remember?
Yeah.
So we've launched over 200 shows. So it's going to be on all the different ones. I don't do that day to day. I don't really know, but I know we pay for them, put it that way.
Yeah, because
and the head of our podcast agency, Matt Cook, he's the one that he heads all of that up.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so about 30%. And earlier on, while in the conversation, you mentioned that you guys get about 1 million, views, downloads, total impressions in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's on the podcast
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, it's taken a long time, man. It's a long build, but what I like to think about is that you build a catalog over time, and hopefully you're recording good interviews, and hopefully people want to listen to them in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, how was
Like that's the goal.
yeah, definitely. Definitely that's the goal. And I guess the question I want to ask now is how do you monetize the podcast? Obviously. Excuse me.
Of course. How do you think?
Excuse me.
Of course we do. How do you think we pay? We got to pay our bills. Yeah, we
Yeah.
monetize.
Yeah. But I just had to ask.
Every different, yeah, of course, every different way you could think of, from front end products, back end products, advertising, you name it. Somebody wants to send me a check, send it. I'll give you my address.
Yeah. I know right now it's pretty big. I know there's probably someone on your team that does maybe the reach outreach for sponsorships, closing deals and all that. And then, the probably product manager, like you have about 30% and everybody's doing what they're pretty good at and to make the team. Yeah. I guess the question I want to take back is when you started, like probably the first year or the first 2 years, right? It was you and your co-founder that was just handling everything yourself, right?
Yep.
How did you get like the first sponsorships or the first major monetization method that you're like, whoa, this is huge?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what we did was, most people, when they go into podcasting, they think of it kind of just like a hobby. We thought of it like a business. So even in the beginning, when we didn't have any downloads and when we first started it, the concept was, are we creating value in the market and will people pay us for that? And so in the beginning, we didn't have any numbers for distribution, but we could sell branding, right? We bring you on the show, we do some social media posts for you. Everybody needs branding, right? So now people may say, well, you had a small show or this or that, like whatever. It's like, well, guess what? Not everybody gets a chance to be interviewed on a podcast. So there's probably a market out there of somebody that would pay for the branding component of coming on your show. And we found those people. But really, it was just about being like thinking about it like a business from the beginning. And what most people will say is they'll be like, oh, they don't pay that much for downloads, or they don't like this or that, or I don't have that many downloads. I have 10 downloads, 100 downloads. Who's going to pay for that? Well, somebody. You just got to go out there and sell, right? If you act like you need it, right? If you treat it like a hobby, then probably it's going to be a hobby. But if you treat it like a business, think about the person out there like at the park that's selling ice creams. He's not out there like, well, there's another person selling ice creams. No, he's like, well, somebody wants to eat some ice cream. Let me go find that person, right?
Yeah.
He's not thinking about the reasons why it won't work. He's trying to figure out how to add value to somebody and get them to write a check.
Yeah. Like I like the way you phrased it. He's thinking of how to add value to somebody and get them to write a check. So it's not like he's thinking of how to get someone to write a check, which is like totally not the way to think about it. Rather, it's what value can I add to someone, and they get them to pay for it.
You want to have a good exchange of value. If you don't, then you're not going to have a repeat customer, right?
Yeah. I'm guessing.
So most of the things we made up, it was just made up. How do we add value? What does the market need?
Yeah. I want us to like talk a bit, one of the major arm of the business is the fact that you guys produce shows for people. You launch, and I'm guessing there are people that are like kind of like, what would I call it now? What's the word to use? More like the customers you work with every month. So it's not like there's a word they use for it. Yeah, on a recurring basis. Yeah. So it's not like one time deal. It's more like, okay, we're with them. We produce their show every month and we release it for them, depending on the frequency that we've agreed on, right?
Yeah.
The question is, how major, I know probably you can't go into specifics regarding the numbers and all that, but how major is this arm of the business in terms of, the revenue and,
Well, I'll tell you, during COVID, it saved us, because COVID was, before that, I did a lot of traveling, a lot of other things. But then when COVID came, all the conferences were closed, right? So during COVID, it really did save us. And because then we were providing a service for other people, and we weren't just relying on advertising or on revenue from traveling or things like that. So it became important. And once you build it, like it's gonna be a good part of our business going forward, because I feel the podcast market is just going to continue to grow. More people are going to want to launch shows. More people are going to be tuning in. Advertising revenues coming more and more to the podcasting space. So why wouldn't people? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what's the offer usually when, what's the offer like regarding this area? What's deliverable?
There's a lot of packages. It's all custom. So we're not like we're not like a, AI, you just put it in there, it comes out the other side, and it's not. Clients come to us because they want guest book, they want the full like service. So packages range anywhere from 1,500 8,000 a month, just depending on what somebody wants, and they can go up from there. It just depends on what type of deliverables they want. Do they want it in studio? Do they want it virtual? Do they want a creative director on the show? Do they want a lot of different things,
I
right?
guess the question I probably should have asked is, what are some of the services that the podcast production arm of the business renders?
Anything related to podcasting at this point, anything, you name it. There's not something that we don't do. Anything that you need related, it's full service, full production. So we can make it as simple or as complicated or as high level or large production as you want, or as, turnkey as you want. So we have people that are, everything in between.
Yeah. So you guys have a podcast studio in LA.
Well, what we found is because we're in LA too, is that there's plenty of podcasting studios. So we use podcasting studios all around the city. And then when you talk about other states, so we have clients in other states, there's usually podcast studios that are located in their geography, and one or two different things. Will either work with whoever that production staff is remotely, or some of our clients will even build podcast studios in their homes or things like that. So whatever needs to be done, but we get the recording done.
Wow. Oh, that's nice. You've been doing this business for 9 years now, and you with your co-founder. And I guess the question I want to ask now is let's just zoom in on podcasting. What are some of the personal benefits? Not just, of course, podcasting has helped you make a lot of money. I mean, that's what you do professionally. That's like your full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
But other than business, I just want us to zoom in personally. What are some of the personal benefits you've kind of had from podcasting?
I'll say it's the best networking mechanism you can get. Like really, the best networking thing that you can imagine. It's going to open doors for you. You're going to have different opportunities. You get to talk to people you haven't got to learn or talk to in the past. You haven't, like real time. Like right now, I'm working on this series for some individuals in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be the 2030 series that we're creating, and I get to talk to people all around the world. Like it's an amazing thing. So I think even just for quality of living, I haven't really seen anything else like podcasting. Like I really haven't.
Yeah. Can you share examples of some of the stories regarding when it comes to networking that you've had from podcasting?
I told you how many episodes I do, so we could start with today. I just did an interview maybe about an hour ago, talking to this gentleman. He was in Dubai, and he's working on these clean water initiatives. The guy's originally from India, and he created this way and he was showing me a white paper and all these other things he's been doing with the FII Institute, and he's literally solving a problem for clean water for, presumably millions of people over time. Like that's amazing. Like that's crazy. That was just today. That was just this morning. But every day of my life that I get to do interviews is just like that. I might wake up, I'm talking to somebody in Brazil, then the next person's in Dubai, then the next person's in London. Actually, I did do one in London today. I forgot. See, I do so many. I already forgot. I did one also in London. So my morning, I woke up. My first interview was Dubai. My second interview was London, and now my third interview. Where are you located?
Nigeria.
I'm sorry. And now Nigeria. Come on. And I'm in LA. What a life.
Yeah.
I covered the globe there, right?
Yeah.
It's 3 continents.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I want to take it further a bit, right? Other than, of course, we get to meet fantastic guests on doing as podcasters, doing interviews. But other than just the guests appearing on, has there been an instance where the relationship has kind of like developed beyond just the interview to leading to other things like maybe business opportunities, other stuff other than just the interview itself? After the interview, where it was the podcast, I met the guest, but then we went on to do some amazing things.
I would say 80%, maybe 70% now, because we've gotten bigger. But in the early days, I would say 100%. Like if we go to year 1, 2, or 3, that's where all our clients came from. Like the only reason why we started a podcast agency, which we weren't going to do, was because one day I was interviewing somebody and they're like, Adam, I see all those podcasts you do. Can you help us do one? And I'm like, no. And then I thought about it and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not traveling. I'm like, we got the team, they're not as busy right now because of COVID. So I was like, yeah. So we took on our first client. And then that's where all those other shows came from.
Oh,
So to answer your question, I've had literally hundreds of relationships develop from that, not just one, hundreds,
wow.
and millions of dollars of revenue.
So what you're saying is this podcast production you're doing, it was more like you were just on your own and the client was like, I want you to do this thing for me. You guys should be able to do this thing. And then you're like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
As long as there's money involved. It seems like something that
That's
I could do.
exactly.
Yeah. Of course. I'm the expert, don't you know?
Well, and in all fairness, we'd already produced and distributed, like at that time, let's say 4,000 episodes
Of your own show.
So we could, yeah.
Yeah.
So we could. So we were the experts, and we just hadn't done it for anybody else yet.
Wow. I mean, the thing that
Mhm.
fascinates me about podcasting is that it's an authority building tool, right? And that's what most people don't get to see because it's really hard to measure that. Oh, how do I measure how much authority my podcast has built for me? It's really hard to put a number behind it. But people see you, and if you get let's say example, if you get a client or a customer from your podcast, the questions and the conversations you will have with them will be different from someone who probably just saw you randomly on Google search and they're like, okay, I'm on a call. Like, it's a bit different questions that they'll be trying to ask. And most of them, they're pretty much sold already. They're just trying to confirm if you deliver those services. Okay, do you do this thing? Do you do this thing? Rather than, how am I sure that you are going to deliver this stuff? I'm like, it's a different conversation personally. And that's why when I see a lot of podcasters, I ask them, do you monetize your show? They're like, no, there are no ads, there are no sponsorships. And I'm like, but you have a business connected to the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, even if you can't connect directly, but your podcast is kind of monetized because it's increasing the conversion and many other things. I mean, you could measure it if you wanted to, but most persons don't do.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I just say now if you Google me or Google Adam Torres or Adam Torres podcast or Adam Torres Mission Matters, and you're going to see I am who I say I am. So that matters over time, your digital footprint.
Yeah. I mean, over 4,000, 6,000 episodes. That's are we still talking about footprints or something else? Yeah. Wow. So I'm kind of curious. What are some of the projections? I know some of them are, company secrets and all that, but what are some of the projections you guys have? Some of the kind of like the top of the innovations, things or experiments you guys are doing regarding as a podcast media company?
Well, of course, AI. I mean, anything that has to do with AI and becoming more efficient or increasing the quality of product using AI is always on our mind. So even things like if you think about 9 years ago, how difficult it was to do show notes. Now the AI does your show notes for you, and they're pretty good. At least the timestamps and things like that. That wasn't possible once upon a time. Now it is,
Yeah.
right? So as for us, we don't want to get left behind by any means, and also the production side of it is we want to stay ahead of that. So that's where we're implementing AI throughout the entire company to make our staff more efficient and to produce higher quality work. So we're going to try to stay ahead of that curve. And if we do, then we, in theory, would be the winners long term in this space.
Yeah. I mean,
versus maybe a company that's not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an opportunity for me to ask this question. You are a podcast company. I can pretty say that with all confidence. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, on the internet now, there are a lot of people posting videos, 20 automations you do that will change your business. These are most of them are just absolute trash. Yeah. I mean, it works, but you as an actual businessman, you realize that this thing is not gonna increase money. Like, it's fancy, it's fun, but there's no use for this stuff. So I'm going to ask you now, right? What are some of the automations, right, that you people are actually doing and kind of like say, wow, this stuff is brilliant. This stuff is like, and people are like really happy and excited about in your business, and probably from production, guest booking, editing, across from start to finish your business, so that we can actually see the stuff that is actually working. Because
I mean, I think some of the basics that have nothing to do with AI, but they're just the basics, like a good scheduler Calendly or a good scheduler. Like sometimes people they complicate their lives, but they don't even have the basics covered, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like a good scheduler is my number one in terms of like the editing and the softwares and that. They're gonna keep getting better. Like using something like what you're using, Riverside, like that thing's getting better year over year. They're not trying to give up their market share, so they're gonna keep investing in creating new tools and things within even Riverside that makes it better. So to me, I say that if you have like great like softwares that you're already using, something like a Riverside or something else, like get into what features they're adding because they probably matter.
yeah,
I think sometimes people jump away from like a software or something else and they don't even realize they were already paying for it.
yeah,
That's a feature. They're like, oh wait, they bought a transcribing feature, but the current editing software they had, all they had to do was pick up a button, and there you go, it transcribes. What?
yeah. Okay, so what you're saying is, I think I've been thinking of it recently. Is if you know that the tool you are using, you're going to like be using the tool for the next minimum of 6 months ahead. Like you see yourself that okay, this tool is going to be in my business for a really long time. It is important or good that you learn some of the nitty gritty of the tool so that you can optimize and work fast. I'll give an example. Email is part of like it's one of the most important tool or app for almost every business, especially if you do a business online, like email, right? So, and there are a lot of shortcuts and things you could do, labeling, creating a filter, and all those things on email that could actually save you a lot of time from actually seeing spam emails and many other things. And most people don't even do that on their email, and it's not even there. For me, what I'm saying is that a lot of people are not even like top of up to date with the features that the software they are using, they are releasing, and at the end of the day, they are still struggling with something that ought to be automated. They're still doing it manually, and I'm like, dude, this stuff like they did a feature 8 months ago that's taking care of that. Why are you still doing this way? I'm like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, everybody's going to go at their own pace, but at least for podcasting, all I say is just never quit. Just keep on putting out your episodes and you'll be fine. Like all the rest is, it's just such a great space. It's growing so well. And then your audience over time, they're going to get used to your voice. They're going to get used to you, your name, like all of that. It's definitely a marathon. It's not a fast game necessarily, but if you treat it like that, all the other softwares of this, of that doesn't even matter. Who cares? I started on my phone, right? It wasn't even editing.
Yeah, iPhone 6, and a lot of persons they have phones way better than iPhone 6 now, and yet they still tell that my camera is not so good. Oh, the stuff is not so this, and I'm like, iPhone 6, man, those days were brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you started, and that's what matters. Now you're at a point where you can afford to like get expensive stuff if you want to, but it's not like you have to or you need to, right? As long as the audio is clear and the camera is clear. I think there's a point where you just reach. In economics, they call it marginal utility, where adding additional features doesn't necessarily change or do anything. Like it's great, but you're like after this point, you're like it's not really a big deal.
I just say keep recording, keep distributing. Sometimes I still put out bad audio now, even today. Like I'll be at a conference and maybe I did the recording didn't come out right or something else, and I'm like in person, and I'm like, am I not going to release it? Of course I'm going to release it.
Yeah.
So I think people just need to relax a little bit on that.
Yeah. Earlier on that.
Too much pressure.
Yeah. Earlier on, I did ask you a question regarding some of the automations and some of the tools and all that. And you told me the answer you gave to me. Let me just say I'm not satisfied. You told me that most of the big tools that we can think of, you're already using it. And I understand where that answer is coming from. But like I get the opportunity to ask to interview someone who is running a podcast media company. So I want to know, like in terms of the podcast production and all that, right? Other than what would it be like the top 5 or top 10 things you guys pay month to month or maybe annually to run the business? I know Riverside is there. You guys are doing the enterprise plan, okay? And what is there?
I think StreamYard might be another one. Off the top of my head, StreamYard. What would be some
Calendly? Is Calendly there?
Obviously, yeah, Calendly's going to be there. We use Google Drive. Obviously, we use a lot of storage in your Google Drives. Yeah. I think they use a bunch of different editing softwares, like everything from maybe Descript to like a bunch of different ones though. They use a bunch of Adobe. We have the whole Adobe suite of things. Canva would be another. One of the graphic design, Photoshop would be another. Like all the big ones basically. Like if you think about it, we don't experiment too much with like new things that just come out. Like, the problem with when you do that, if you have a lot of shows you're responsible for, is what happens if they stop updating, right?
Yeah.
What happens if something happens and that company goes out of, you don't want to you can't change your
Yeah.
processes. Monday.com, I think that's
Oh,
another
for
one.
project
Monday.
management.
Yeah, Monday would be another one. I don't know if we use Trello boards still,
You-
but I know we
You
did at
guys
one
use
point.
what do you guys
Trello
use for
boards.
communication? Is it Slack?
Google infrastructure. So Google Chat or like Zoom, of course. Zoom would be
Like,
one.
I mean, the
Monday,
basic messaging where you're like, hi, what's happening? Have you checked this? Like, what do people use for messaging within the company?
Google. I think Google Chat would be a
Oh,
big
why am
one.
I hearing this for the first time? Google Chat. So they have a feature called Google Chat.
Yeah, am I saying it wrong? Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's just basically Google Chat. So our infrastructure is Google. So on the email side of things, there's a little chat feature.
Okay. I mean, you guys are already paying for the Google Workspace. You might as well use the tools.
Yeah. And it's all integrated. You're in your email all day anyway.
Yeah.
So, and then they use other things too. So they're using like Monday, for example, for project management. And I think we might even use, like I said, Trello boards or some other ones. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that brings me back to the question is, what are some of the trends you've noticed that are kind of like, really, really important and not just wolf cry?
I think that anytime there's some organic reach being given somewhere, that people should be paying attention, because so I think that things like YouTube Reels or Instagram, still like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, I think all of those are still very relevant. Stories, driving traffic, because ultimately you want to get attention, right? You need to get attention. And in my opinion, they're going to do a certain amount of it organic, but then also paid too. So like running ads and advertisements, that's never going anywhere. So I think some of those, I don't really know of any other really big organic reach, tactics at this moment that are still going on. That seems to be the main ones. Obviously TikTok's always a player, right? If you have content that you feel is appropriate there and you can figure out how to create something that people are going to resonate with, TikTok's always a huge one, but that's been huge for 5 years at least. So whether people knew it or not, right? But it's still been huge. But we don't do terribly well on TikTok. I think we got a couple thousand people, like nothing crazy. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you heard the man, he said, pay attention to organic reach. So I guess I'll do that. Okay. Wow. That's. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not as complex as we think it is. I mean, it's a lot of persons, but it's just the simple idea expanded, and basically that's what it is. Wow, 9 years, and
It's just execution, man. It's execution. That's the thing. It's execution. And it's just every single day doing what you're doing and making sure you putting it out even when you don't know why you're putting it out. Your numbers aren't going up. You're like, what's going on? And you get, most people are going to quit. That's the thing. And so that's a good thing for the people that don't quit, because they stick out even more. I'm looking at, what does it look like when, 9 years, we could say it's a long time, but I'm pretty young. In 10 more years, it's going to be 20 years.
yeah,
That catalog's going to be, 20,000.
Yeah.
Then what happens? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it's a good thing you mentioned.
But probably something good.
Yeah.
Probably something good.
Yeah. It's a good thing you mentioned that, because other than consistency for the past 9 years, right? Other than consistency and showing up consistently, what would you say? And I'd love for you to like answer this from a business perspective, right? How do I explain this now? When you're doing a business, right? It's not really a matter of, okay, let me build it and they will come. It's a matter of, okay, how do I get leads? How do I get people to listen to? And if you're doing a media company, your listeners, they're kind of like, your customers in a way, because if you're doing ads, you're doing sponsorships, partnerships, those are the persons that you do. And then of course guests. But how do you, other than showing up consistently, or what are like the major growth levers? You could say this stuff actually, even though it might not be crazy growth, but you're like, this stuff worked and we did it and we're still doing it now, even for some other persons we do. You said you people do everything for podcast companies, everything for podcasters, and I'm guessing you guys also do podcast growths.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it all goes back to like the culture. the culture of innovation and wanting to stay in front and figuring out what's going on, what's working, what's not. Things change constantly. So it's more so just the culture of everybody, everybody from your admin to your editors to your video producers to your podcast producers to everybody's always thinking about like how to make things better. So over time, what happens with that type of culture is that the innovation is kind of like a natural output for everybody's work and labor. So we have people that have been editing. The second person we ever hired, he's still with us all these years later. The first person was his brother. He moved on to another position, but at another company. But the second person is still here, and he can see the growth too. So everybody feels part of that growth because they are. So they know their work matters. They know that they can think about an episode where we were 9 years ago when they were editing versus now, and the increase in quality and reach and content, the brand, like all of that. They're part of that. So I think the culture around a show, in this case, a company, but if you don't have a big company and that's not your goal and you just want to create a great show, then the culture that you create around your show, and if you can marry that with community and figure out the community component around your show, then you have something. Like, then you have something that, in a perfect world, the way I design this and the way we design this is I shouldn't be the last host on these Mission Matters shows. Like, that's going to go on far past my days on this earth. So there will be other hosts, there will be other opportunities, there will be other things for other people, and that will get passed on at some point. So that's the way we think of it. So if you're creating a show right now and it's all about me, like maybe start thinking about that show as being part of your legacy, and one day there'll be another host on your show. Like when you retire, maybe it's in many, many years, maybe not. It just depends. But like, think of it as you're creating an opportunity for others too, and for employment, for them to be a part of something, like many different layers of.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. On a final note, what's one thing you really want to share with beginner podcasters or people who are struggling to even be consistent, let alone make a business out of their podcast?
Yeah. Well, what I like to tell people is that your story matters. Like, I think a lot of times people have this fear of like, who's going to listen to me, or like that imposter syndrome, sets in. Well, as experienced as I am, or as long as I've been doing this, there's going to be a new podcaster that starts today on their very first episode, and they're gonna attract an audience, and some of them are going to have bigger audiences than me. Why? It doesn't matter to me. I want them to be successful. It's just because some people, their voice resonates better than somebody else's, or somebody likes their type of content, or somebody likes, it doesn't matter. The point is just, your story matters. So if you feel like you have something inside that you want to share with the world, if you feel that even if you don't feel that you have something that you feel matters, that's going to be earth changing or anything like that, just think about it this way. At the very simplest level, when you do a show, you're part of writing your own history. And you're leaving a piece of your legacy and of your time on earth, and you're telling your story as well and sharing your wisdom. So it matters. And I'd say get in the game, man. If you're on the sidelines, get in the game. You don't have to work with a company like ours to launch your show. Go online and launch one in 5 minutes. Figure it out. Go on YouTube. Do it yourself. Whatever you got to do, just get one done.
Thank you so much for those really inspiring words. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and coming on the show and for sharing your podcast story. Where can listeners learn more about you and your company and your podcast, and see and check out what you do?
So really, really simple. You just go on Instagram, Ask Adam Torres. There's a link there. So simple. Ask Adam Torres is a link to my link tree. That link tree link, it's going to take you to, we got free ebooks. We got the content, the podcast, newsletters. We give out more free content, I believe, than any other company of our size on the planet. So plenty of things to find there. But just go to the podcast, or go to my Instagram, Ask Adam Torres, and you'll see everything there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adam, for coming on the podcast and for sharing your story. I'm inspired, and I believe my listeners have been inspired too.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate all you're doing, and thank you for all that hard work, and keep on recording, man. That's what I'm talking.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.